Hey guys, this is the story of the journey of the last 17 months and just the beginning of the story of how God has called me and what He's done with that. So, I was at the Echo Missions Conference at Church on the Rock, Wasilla, October 18th, 2021, and they're singing Christ Be Magnified, which to me was, first of all, already way overdone and just excessively hypothetical. You've got we're creation suddenly articulate, and we're the whole earth echoing his immanence. And I'm just too practical. I'm like, and it's not. And what are you going to do? Like, why are we singing about this? and, but worship's not about me. And so I chose to engage. And the bridge or the chorus in that song, it says, I won't bow to idols. I'll stand strong and worship you. And if it puts me in the fire, I'll rejoice because you're there too. I won't be formed by feelings. I hold fast to what is true. And if the cross brings transformation, then I'll be crucified with you. Because death is just a doorway into resurrection life. And if I join you in your suffering, then I'll join you when you rise. And when you return in glory with all the angels and the saints, my heart will still be singing. My song will be the same. And I was like, okay, I gotta admit, that's pretty quality and also pretty radical. Not words to say lightly. Um, and so I began to have this encounter, and I saw the face of my Inupiaq friend, and I felt like God said I was supposed to go to her people with Bill Pagran and carry the cure, broken walls. I think he had spoken that night, and that I was supposed to go to the Send in Kansas City 2022, and that I was supposed to go to YWAM. But specifically, that I was supposed to go to those First Nations, the first of all the First Nations people first. Um, and I saw a picture of like Alaska, and the region was highlighted right there on the west side, that peninsula above the Seward Peninsula. And I was a little confused because I thought that my friend, that the Inupiaq were from the Bethel region. And so I looked it up after the song, and sure enough, she was from the southernmost part of just exactly where I had seen, even though what I had in my head of how that worked was totally wrong. So that was kind of confirmation in and of itself. And so, like I said, I think Bill was there that night, and I told him what had happened and that I wanted to go to the Inupiaq, and he said that when he went, he'd be happy to take me. And so that was that. I went on to get tickets for the Send, and our tickets home, just we got the ones down there on a real good coupon, and the ones home, the prices just would not drop. And we waited and waited and waited and waited. And finally, I told my cousin Micaiah, who was going with me, I was like, we have to buy tickets this Thursday, or we're not going to get tickets. They're just gonna get more expensive from here. And so that Thursday happened to be my birthday, was March 10th, and so I get up that morning, and ticket prices have fallen to a very reasonable place. Like, perfect, finally. Thank you, Jesus. And so we went to the Send. My biggest takeaway from that was somebody said, this life is a dressing room for eternity. And that really stuck with me. I've thought about that ever since and talked about it. And it's like, again, that's just not something to take lightly. Um, what's happening now really matters. And so we got there, and we had bought tickets for the Send too early and weren't allowed to be on the field, which as dancers would be nice because there is nowhere to dance in the entire stadium. It's just jam-packed with seats. The only place is the vomitoriums, which is not ideal for multiple reasons besides being called the vomitorium. But there was this one like balcony up on the end of the stadium, and we went up there, and then got kicked out because they didn't have paramedics assigned there. But I guess so many people wanted to be over there that they like reassigned paramedics, and so we got to go over there. And turns out that was actually like where they play the drums over the Chiefs games, which is pretty cool. And so I think I set a record for dancing that day. I danced like 6 hours. Um, and on that trip, I also got to go see my grandma and grandpa, who I hadn't seen in like 5 years. And my grandpa passed away just like a month after that. So that was really special. So the missions conference comes back around October 2022, and the rest of my word, nothing's happening. And so I got my PFD, and I decided to save $100 of that as a seed for my trip, and just in faith that was going to happen. And then back on track. Then February this year, I'm worshiping at King's Chapel, and just focused on the song, and pretty intense. And I feel this shift all of a sudden, and I feel like maybe my door north has opened. And I was like, well, it'll be really interesting to see if I end up going north before the end of February or even before the end of March. But who knows? With this spiritual stuff, maybe there's 6 more doors that have to open, and there'll be years and years more. I don't know. I was thinking, I had thought for a long time, I was like, when God wants it to happen, it'll happen. And I thought, well, maybe he wants me to partner with him on that it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And so I decided to fast that week after that. And I also saw some northern lights in the sky that week, and I was like, is that a green light to the north? I think maybe it is. And so then a couple weeks later, there was like record-setting northern lights that were spectacular. And it's like, I hope this is my green light north. But I'll be faithful and keep waiting if that's what I'm supposed to do. So again, a couple weeks later, I'm thinking of Bill. I just keep thinking of him, and just keep coming up on my mind. And I'm like, you know what? I should check out his Facebook, see what he's up to. And it takes me, again, a few days to get that done because I have a internet timer on my phone, and I'll run out of time, and finally remember and still have time, and I check it out, and he's got trips planned to southeast. Literally the opposite direction of where I need to go. And he's also got the Carry the Cure Iditarod outreach coming up in just less than a couple weeks. And they still need some money. And I was like, well, I've saved this $100 for all this time. It's not doing anything. I might as well sow into what they need now and figure out my expenses when they're actually expenses. And so I donated it, put Inupiaq seed in the memo. And about not even 4 hours later, Bill texts and says, would you like to go on the outreach in 11 days? And this is the day before my birthday. And I was like, well, God didn't say I couldn't go elsewhere, but I really need to go to Inupiaq. That's what I'm waiting on. But maybe this is like a stepping stone, so I'll look at it. And so I checked, and the first village they're going to is Selawik, and that's actually Inupiaq village. And I was like, if one of the 5 villages is Inupiaq, that should count. Maybe this is what I've been waiting for. And so I looked, the next city, Norvik, and Inupiaq. And Kivalina, Inupiaq. And Noatak, Inupiaq. And Kotzebue, our last stop, Inupiaq. And so I'm like, I think maybe this is what I've been waiting for 17 months and 3 days. And so I checked with my mentor. He felt good about it. I prayed about it, and I felt like God said go. Then the next day I thought, and I was like, well, I got the answer I wanted. So really, make sure that this is actually what he wants me to do. I prayed about it again, and I felt like he said duh that time. So I got work off, my boss approved, and my expenses are covered completely. Speaking of sowing my seed, it's not even going to cost me $100. I've given to it, but my actual cost is covered. And I'm like, that 3 hour 45 minutes that it took for between my donation and him inviting me, like, that's the shortest seed time and harvest I've ever heard of. Um, and that night, actually, I had a dream. I was at somebody's house, and there was this sick male moose outside, and he's in rut. He's not doing well, like wounded and mangy, and we see something that's like falling out of his wound, and it ends up it's a baby moose falls out and is lying in the driveway. I have weird dreams, and I'm like, we should like take care of this thing before like Fish and Game comes or something. We can take care of it, make sure it's okay, keep it warm as it's wintertime. And so, but we're like, well, maybe we don't want to get germs or weird things on it. We should clean our hands. And so by the time we get out there to bring it in, it's already on its feet and walks into the house of its own accord, still pretty unstable. And just a few minutes later, we're playing with it like a house, like a dog in the house. And it's going up and down the stairs. It's dried off and fluffy. And it's just like this maturing is like really accelerated. And it's teething on my hand. And that's really painful. But I had a lion cub chew on my hand before. So like it's not going to bite my fingers off. But it does not feel good. And that's the end of the dream. That was weird. I wonder if that has anything to do with what's going on. So I shared it with Prophet Mary Glazier, and she says, well, the moose is a common symbol for the native peoples and villages. So I think what you're seeing is the next generation of young people, or whatever their backgrounds were and whatever kind of stuff they've come out of, coming in and maturing quickly and growing teeth that are ready for the word really fast. And I was like, oh, that's good. That's why I love you, Mary. So yeah, that's the story. And it's been so cool how God has been faithful to me through this. And there's been a lot of other stuff that's just gone on in my spiritual life, ups and downs in that time. But just what God has done through this whole time, and my holding on to this word that I really didn't even have any evidence, wasn't just my own thoughts for the longest time. I feel like that's kind of hard to claim now. And can't wait to see what he's going to do when I get back from this trip. I'll be applying for YWAM Johannesburg with the Stridums, and yeah, I leave in just a few hours from the airport that is literally 50 yards that away. So yeah, feel free to be praying for me, and thanks, guys.